Good afternoon, everyone. I think we're going to get started now. So welcome to Industry Updates. My name's Louise Russell. I'm the chair of this afternoon's session. A regular on the conference programme, Industry Updates is really an opportunity to get a snapshot of new products, initiatives and standards that are coming along. It's a quick-fire session, so each speaker has the challenge of delivering their update within 5 minutes. So I'm not going to dwell on the introductions. I'm very pleased to welcome our first speaker, Simon Holt, who's Head of Content Accessibility at Elsevier, and he's going to be talking to us about the US Accessibility Act, following on from his update on the European Act last year. Thanks, Simon.
Hi, everybody. So as Louise mentioned, my name's Simon Holt. I'm the Head of Content Accessibility at the science publishers Elsevier. That basically involves helping Elsevier to make books, journals, audio and video accessible to people with disabilities. As some of you may know, if you see me wandering around with my white cane, I'm a sight impaired person myself, and therefore this is really important to me personally, as well as professionally. Today I'm going to talk about some landmark legislation that's coming into force in the United States around the accessibility of books, journals and other web content that I think will have some quite big implications towards making all the content we publish more accessible to a lot more people. Next slide, please. So, who is this for? I always like to include this slide because I think it's important to focus on who we're talking about here. So 15% of the world's working age population has some kind of disability. We're not just talking about people with visual impairments, but also hearing impairments, people with dyslexia, dyspraxia, neurodivergence, etc. Accessible content is also really important for people who don't have disabilities. So for example, a recent study showed that 70% of people under 30 accessed a video with captions or subtitles at least once a week. So actually, by making our content accessible, we're really helping make it more flexible for more people and obviously broaden our audience as well. Next slide, please. So, as Louise said, last year, I spoke a bit about the European Accessibility Act, which was a landmark legislation affecting all book content sold within the European Union. This year, we're talking about the equivalent in the United States, which is coming into force in 2026. Except this one is bigger because it includes journal content and also anything else that is content that's published on the web. I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison a little bit later on. But the key thing is here that if you sell content to universities in the United States, then this affects you, even if you are not a US publisher yourself. Next slide, please. So what's the purpose? Like, why are we doing this? Well, it's about empowerment. It's about making sure that people with disabilities are able to read, learn, understand in the same way as everybody else. It's about creating a level playing field and establishing a set of core standards that everybody can get behind and that is universal across the scholarly publishing and the broader publishing industry and ecosystem. It's about making sure that everybody has the same opportunity to become educated and to gain knowledge, which I think we can all agree is pretty important. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share this slide as quite a helpful resource. So in the US, there's quite an important lobby organization called the Library Accessibility Alliance, and they represent, I think, 12 of the major consortium of libraries within the US. So they include, for example, the Big Ten Library Alliance, and they include about, as I said, 10 or 11 other regional or national library alliances. And they have issued something called a Dear Colleague letter to all of the major publishers in the world, basically explaining what they're expecting from publishers when this act comes into force on the 24th of April 2026. As you can see, it sets out quite clearly the guidelines, the standards that need to be adhered to. So we're talking about the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG for short, 2.1. We're talking about transparency, so making sure that people are clear on their platforms and their content, what's accessible and what's not. And we're talking about having a roadmap, making sure that if something isn't compliant yet, that there is a concrete plan to make it compliant in the future. Next slide, please. So here is a side-by-side comparison of the difference between what happened in Europe in 2025, so the EAA that came into force in June, and then what's going to happen in the US. And basically, the important differences, as I mentioned, are in terms of scope, but also in terms of liability. So in Europe, publishers are liable. In America, it's universities and hospitals and other public entities that make content available to the general public. Obviously, as we know, they have contracts, though, with publishers, so therefore, they are asking publishers to promise that we will provide accessible content to them. Now, obviously, it's worth thinking about the means of enforcement here, right? So there's a regulator for the European Act. For the American Act, we're talking about litigation, and therefore, you know, as with anything to do with litigation, this is worth really taking quite seriously. Next slide, please. So, final slide for me, what to do. So, here are some practical steps that we've taken at Elsevier. Would suggest you guys start thinking about. So hopefully you've already started doing some accessibility work as part of the European directive that came into force this year. Build upon that. Be transparent about what you're doing and when you're doing it. Phase content, especially backlist content, right? You know, we have 20 million articles on Science Direct. The idea we're going to be able to make them all accessible all at the same time is probably not very viable, right? So for us, we have a plan that we're going to do this in phases, and we're going to be making that plan public so everybody knows exactly what we're doing, when we're doing it, and how we're doing it. I'd also encourage people to take part in industry organizations such as, so we have the Publishing Accessibility Action Group, there are groups within organizations like STM, et cetera, in order to make sure that you're learning best practice and also sharing what you've learned with others as well. If anybody at this conference would like to come and talk to me about the Act and what it means and, you know, the kinds of things we've been up to and what you might be able to do, then obviously, you know, I'll be here for the rest of the conference, so I'll be glad to talk with you. Thanks very much.
Hello, I'm Sophia Anderton, and in my day job, I'm Chief Executive of BJU International, but I'm here today to talk to you with my hat on as co-chair of the NISO Transfer Standing Committee. NISO, if you've not come across it, is the National Information Standards Organisation, and transfer is one of their recommended practices. And full disclosure, I'm the ALPS rep on the transfer committee. So first of all, what is transfer? I'm sure many of you have been involved in moving journals from one publisher to another, whether you work at a society or a major commercial publisher. This happens all the time, and this code of practice is to make this as smooth as possible. And so that's for the benefit of all the users, the readers, librarians. So it is actually a seamless transition. The code is a voluntary code, and we've got over 100 publishers and societies that have signed up to abide by the code, and their names are listed on the transfer website. So if you're involved in a transfer and you think this isn't going right, go and have a check to see if they've signed up to abide by the code. But just, we're not the transfer police, so don't come reporting to us, but it's an opportunity to have a conversation about the code and the guidelines for it. So the code is put together by a standing committee with representatives from across the industry, representatives from some of the major publishers, from societies. There are librarians and service providers. It's a big committee, and we meet online, international committee, every couple of months. And over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, we've been really scrutinising the latest version of the code, and we're about to publish in its final form version 5, but I'll come to that in a second. But the code is more than just a code. We have the transfer alerting service, and this is vital for our librarian community. So when a journal moves from one publisher to another, there is an alerting system that goes out to people who've signed up to the alerting system, which is a lot of librarians, so that they can see what's happened. And we have an ongoing programme of outreach. So just a very quick history of transfer. It started back in 2006 under the auspices of UKSG, and version 1 was published in 2007. Over the time, it moved to NISO, and the transfer alerting system was developed as well. Version 5 should be being published imminently. So what is in version 5? So version 4 was pretty good. I mean, it covers most things, but as time goes on, practices change, and we saw that more and more open access journals and open access content with transformative agreements, they're just ubiquitous now, and the code didn't really address those fully. So we've put in more information about open access and TAs, waivers, APCs. We've put a lot of time thinking about articles that are in progress at the point of a transfer. So perhaps they've been submitted to one journal, then there's a transfer. What happens to those articles in the different scenarios? We've defined what paid subscribers means. As things have changed, we're talking more about an article economy rather than a journal economy, so making sure that fits still within a journal transfer conversation. Been looking at perpetual access and backfile content, and updating the info on downstream services. We have scrutinised every single word in version 4. There's been huge amounts of backwards and forwardsing and arguing over the exact wording, but I think we've hopefully got to a good a place, and we've also taken in the comments from version 4, which was published in 2019. But so why do we bother to have a code? It's a really nice, succinct checklist for transferring publishers and receiving publishers to sort of have a guideline of what they should be doing and when. It's got helpful timelines of what should happen at what point, and important benchmarks that have to be met. It's also useful for societies to help keep their publishers to account. But the key thing is that it's not meant to be overly prescriptive. Yes, this is the framework of what should happen, but we're aware that there are commercial sensitivities, that perhaps some things can't happen, perhaps at the timeline suggested. But it's there to be helpful rather than constrictive. And I think I've mentioned the transfer alerting service. It's useful for librarians to have all the transfers in one single place, and as well as the listserv email, there's a database which is hosted by the International ISSN Centre in Paris. Again, who's it for? For everybody in every stage of the process. As I said, societies use this to hold your journal partners to account, to make sure that things happen. And I know that some consultants use it as well to help make that process smooth. But it shouldn't just be for the people who are doing the transfer. Editorial teams, sales teams, marketing teams, there's lots of information about communications to communities. So do make sure that everyone within your organisation is aware of it if you're involved in a transfer. So version 5, when can you read it? There is a draft version of version 5, which is currently on the NISO transfer now. Do take a look at that. There is going to be a final tweaked version that will be available imminently. We published the draft version for community comments, and we got loads of feedback, which was amazing. That closed on the 2nd of May, and over the summer we've been addressing those final comments. So do stay tuned and look out for the latest update. We're going to try and do as much comms to reach everybody as possible. And I'm just going to end with a few final useful links, but basically, if you Google, you'll find us. So thank you very much.
My name is Erin Hill-Parks, and I am the Senior Product Operations Manager for Science Direct. So I just thought I'd take this 5 minutes to introduce you to Science Direct AI, which is our very clever name for the AI tool on Science Direct. What is it? It is a workflow companion that helps researchers to locate information faster, make connections that they might not have made or may have taken a while, and just a way to use the full text content that Science Direct has in a responsible way for researchers. So I wanted to do a live demo, but live demos always go wrong. So I've screenshotted a demo, and I'll talk it through. Sorry if I talk really quickly. I'm nervous about the 5 minutes because there's a lot I could say about this. So you'll notice that this, or you might not notice, but this is the homepage of Science Direct. Science Direct AI is not a separate product. It is on top, well, it is a separate product, but it sits on top of Science Direct because it uses the content in Science Direct as well as select third-party content as well. It searches the full text, and if you sign in as an institutional user or as an individual user subscriber, you'll see that there is a little Science Direct sprinkle at the top and a little Science Direct AI menu at the bottom as well. If you click on either of these, you will then be taken to our Ask Science Direct AI, which is where we use the large language model to search for your question. You can ask your question in whatever way you would like. The more in-depth, as with most AI things, the better answers that you will receive. You can also ask it in a language other than English, although most of the results are in English. So I put a question in, I hit ask, and you'll see the responses. It's telling you what it's doing. It optimizes your question to try and get the best response for you possible. You can always, it will shrink when it's done, and it will you can expand it again. And if you don't like how it did it, you can ask it to redo it or just search without optimization, because we want the researcher to be in control of this search. So when it finishes, you scroll down, and it gives you a summary based on the question you asked. So this is asking for a comparison, so it's giving bullet points, but it also is giving answers in a table format, so it'll depend on what the question is that you ask. And then at the end, it will give you a summary of the response that it gave you. You'll notice that there are blue citations throughout it. So you can save all of these citations to your library, which is run through Mendeley Reference Manager, or you can just copy the entire answer and put it into your own Word document or some other document as well and save it for later, because each time you would run the query, you might get a slightly different response. So if you want to save this one, you can do so. We also make sure that there are rating systems throughout so that researchers can tell us if this actually was a relevant response or a relevant citations. So if you click on a citation, you will get a preview. It will appear on the side like this one, and you can see where what it was, where it came from, what publisher is with, and also where in the original full text article or book chapter, in this case, it came from, so that you can see and also see the exact language from the original document to check if the assertion that the Ask Science Direct AI matches what you read from it. If we go back to the main Science Direct AI, if you scroll down after the response, you'll see that the references that were used in that summary response, as well as insights from citations that could be useful but weren't actually used in the summary. If you expand it, you'll see each citation. You'll see that you can save it to your library, you can copy the citation, and it also gives you a summary of what that article was about in case you want to go into it and read more about it. And it also does that with the related insights, so you can see what it's about. If you do go and click on one of the references and you have full text access to that article, then you can click on View Article or Book Chapter, and it will open a new tab where it has the full text article. If you don't already have access to that full text article, then the reading assistant, as we call this part, won't work. You can get the reading assistant going directly into any full text article you have entitlement to as well. And you can see here at the top, it suggests questions you might want to ask about the article, and this will just be searching this particular article. But since we came over from the Ask Science Direct AI, it brought the question over with us, and it will ask that question to just this article and tell you what this article said about that question. You can also click on the numbers to show where in the article or book chapter it's pulling that assertion from. It also suggests different follow-up questions you can ask to continue your research, and also it allows you to copy this answer or to go back to the Ask Science Direct AI. So we'll do that. At the bottom, you can see on the Ask Science Direct AI, there are other questions to help you continue your research if you want. You can click on those and it will ask those questions, run it through the Ask Science Direct AI, or you can compare experiments. Any research article that came out in the summary will then create a table of those research articles, giving you an overview, not just of the experiments, but of the article itself and what the article is made up. You can see there are multiple research articles that were in the references, so there are multiple articles here that you can that are in the table, and you can export that to Excel so that you can add to it and change things and combine it with other tables from other queries that you might run. That was an extremely brief overview, so thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name's Charlie Head. I'm a Society and Partner Manager at Springer Nature. Today I'm going to be talking about an exciting donation that we made to the SDM Integrity Hub. Before I do that, I just wanted to talk about the development of artificial intelligence tools at Springer Nature and how we've got here. We've been exploring new technologies, AI, with our authors, researchers, and reviewers for the last decade at least. We want to make sure that these tools make research faster, make research more accessible, and make research more trustworthy. And we've developed these alongside our AI principles, which you can see here. We really want to make sure that we're taking a human-centered approach to AI, where AI supports our researchers and our reviewers and our editors rather than replacing them. And you can see some of the principles that we've developed here. So we prioritize human well-being and dignity. We mitigate the potential for any structural biases within our AI tools. We explain the use of AI in our processes in accessible language. And like I say, we maintain human oversight of the development, again, taking a human-centered approach. Of course, we also safeguard personal privacy every step of the way. We've already integrated some of these new technologies into our workflows. These have been developed by our in-house teams, along with some external partners as well. And you can see some examples here. So our submission system, Snap, already has a number of different tools integrated into it. Snapshot is an example there. This is an image integrity tool supported by AI that we use to analyze things like Western blots for manipulation. AI is also being built into our journal platform, Springer Nature Link, to drive researcher engagement. And of course, we also have the main event, our AI nonsense text detector, which is a bit of a mouthful. So we're extremely proud to have been able to donate this tool to the SDM Integrity Hub. It's a tool that allows publishers to detect nonsense text that's most likely been generated by some sort of AI system, like a large language model. The SDM Integrity Hub, for those who aren't familiar, is an online platform that publishers can access that allows them to screen submissions for various different things, such as AI-generated text. This tool was developed by our in-house research integrity group alongside our AI lab, who we fondly refer to as Snail, Springer Nature AI Lab. I did not come up with that. So how does it work? I'm sure you'll all be familiar. I'm sure many editors have seen this type of thing before. This is obviously nonsense. It doesn't mean anything. In this study, agrofood manages biofuel production, making the complex molecular factors for the premises and the co-production of costs. It's absolute nonsense. This doesn't mean anything. This is not valid research. And what we want to make sure is that when our reviewers and editors are working for our journals, that they're spending their time efficiently. So the system is able to spot these indicators of AI-manipulated sentencing. A human will then check this, like I say, very much taking a human-centered approach. They will validate this, make sure that actually, yes, this is a valid ping in the system. And that can then be withdrawn early to prevent editors and reviewers wasting their time on meaningless research. So why do we donate it to the SDM Integrity Hub? Well, as a founding member of the SDM Integrity Hub, we really wanted to lead the way with cross-publisher collaboration. It also aligns really closely with our commitment to open, shared solutions for the problems that we face with research integrity. We also are really keen to support smaller publishers. For example, I know there are many self-published societies here today that maybe don't have the resources to be able to develop these kind of tools in-house. They'll now be able to access this through the STM Integrity Hub, and hopefully it will help them in their battles against research integrity as well. And finally, there is a positive feedback loop, so the more people that use this tool, the more submissions that are passed through it. It does strengthen the tool itself, hopefully improving the results for everyone. So in the development of this tool, we focused on the needs of researchers, helping streamline their engagement with our journals. The tool also helps us to focus on making science more accessible, and it helps ensure that research integrity and trustworthiness, both of which are really important for scientific progress, but which I think we can probably all agree are under some level of attack at the moment from many different sides, are maintained. So I think I'm within time. Just to briefly summarize, we really want to make sure that any AI tool that we develop at Springer Nature is used to make science faster. We want to make it science more accessible, and we want to make science more trustworthy. We really hope that tools such as this are going to allow researchers to focus on the core of their work, which is their research. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura Paglione. I'm with Very Me Co-op, and I am part of the founding team, which consists of 4 people. Lori Hack and I were on the founding leadership team for ORCID as well, so a lot of our work on Very Me is informed by our work that we did in ORCID. When we were at ORCID, we found that people were really excited about the fact that there was a unique identifier for individuals. They were excited that those ORCID IDs were built into workflows, research and scholarship workflows. But we got persistent questions of how can we tell that this person that we are talking to is who they say they are? And how do we know that this ORCID ID is tied to only one person and one person has only one ORCID ID? And these were questions that ORCID was never designed to tackle. ORCID has always said that they want to have a way to enable the wide variety of purposes that people will be using ORCID IDs for. So when we built Very Me, our core goal was to build identity verification services. And we are setting out to, in our infancy, in our beginning, we are setting out to do 3 core things. One is to know that a person is who they say they are. The second is to distinguish people from AI agents and bots. And the last, which is not on the slide, is to ensure that we have greater fidelity between there being one person for every account. And I'll talk about that in depth in a little bit. So I'm going to skip this slide. There are slides in here that, if you go back and look at the slides, there's more information. But there's too little time. So what we have, the way that Very Me works is we have a set of evidence markers. So in this slide, this is an image of what a researcher might see. In the top group, there is a list of 3 evidence markers, a verified email address, multi-factor authentication, and a connected ORCID record, an authenticated ORCID ID. These bundle up to a verification. So the evidence markers are not something that's shared with anyone who's interrogating the database to find out information about an individual. Instead, it is the verification that's being shared. And in this case, it's that the account is a verified Very Me account. And you'll notice that there are sliders on those. The individual has the ability to affect all of those evidence markers, and they have the ability to choose whether they share the verification with others or they want to keep that as a private piece of information. The second, that first area, that first verification is available to anybody who uses Very Me as part of our free account for a member. The second area, which is personhood, it includes two evidence markers. It includes a government ID being checked. We are working with a third-party service that works in over 200 countries. And then we also pair that with a liveness check. So this is a way to determine that a person is actually a person, not a bot that you're talking to. And of course, verifications cost money. So for this, we are asking people to become members of the Very Me Cooperative. And being a member of the Very Me Cooperative has some benefits in addition to the ability to assert that you are a person. The big thing is that as a member of the co-op, you participate in the co-op's governance. This is important, as have been conversations in the past, having a governance model that allows for basically community ownership over a critical piece of research infrastructure is really important. And this is a way that we felt we could do that in a way that a nonprofit couldn't. So this allows those individuals that are providing their personal and sensitive information to have some governance over the way that information is used. I just talked about that. So we're looking for 3 ways for perhaps you would be helping us in our journey. We are a startup. We are planning to launch in the next couple of months. And we're looking for 3 areas where we could use some help. The first area is in use case feedback. We are working with organizations who will become subscribers to the information. Those are the ones that would be able to ask questions about the verification. We have 3 organizations that have already signed up to be members, to be partners in our early stages. This is Signals, Redivis, and Dryad. These organizations are helping us with use cases, understanding what workflows might look like, how they would exchange information, and what they would expect as an answer. We're also looking for financial support. We are, as I said, we're a co-op, so financial support would not come as an equity kind of finance. It would come in the form of patient capital, in the form of loans. And we're looking for support that will help us get through the first 2 years. And we wanted to we would like to thank Digital Science for their generous support in some pre-launch funding. The last area is a researcher survey, which we just launched yesterday. This is launched on LinkedIn. So if you go to if you go to mine or Lori's accounts or to the Very Me account, you'll see this researcher survey, also posting it out as much as I can. In this researcher survey, we're asking researchers about their experiences with verification services. Perhaps they are getting a grant and they are required to provide a government ID in order to get a grant. What was that experience like, and to what extent do they want that information to be maintained among themselves? So we are looking for those insights. We're also looking for insights on other types of verifications that might be useful in the future. For example, should there be a verification for somebody to say that they're a researcher? And what does that mean? What does that mean for a researcher's perspective? What does that mean from an organization's perspective? So there's not enough time to describe all of the things, so I encourage you to go to our website or to reach out to me. My email address is here. And there's a bunch of slides that are not included here that you can see otherwise. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. As the slide says, I'm Michael Healy, Executive Director at Copyright Clearance Center for Rights Holder and International Relations. Describing a single collective AI licensing solution in 5 minutes is almost impossible. Doing 2 is even harder. So I'm going to give it the best shot I can, and I'm going to rely on all of you to if you have questions, to grab me afterwards in the coffee break. I also have colleagues here, Nancy, Erin, and others, and they'd also be happy to take any questions you might have about this. So, as everybody knows, AI systems are depending on copyrighted content, and we believe that licenses are an essential part of ensuring that your content as publishers is used responsibly in AI systems. Those licenses that I'm talking about might be direct, you know, a publisher licensing an end-user corporation, for example, directly, and many of you will have participated in some of these very high-profile deals you've seen from STM publishers for AI reuse rights. But there's also a place in this ecosystem for collective licensing solutions, and that's what I'm going to talk about today very, very briefly. You may ask, why now? Well, everyone in this room knows that tech companies are lobbying very, very hard at the moment all around the world to modify copyright law in their favor and to dilute the protections, the copyright protections that publishers have relied on for generations. There are dozens of high-profile lawsuits awaiting judgment now, and the availability of licensing solutions will play a very key part, I think, in some of those judgments. If you've been following the New York Times versus OpenAI case, if you've read the complaint, the New York Times says the infringement is especially egregious because affordable licensing solutions are available from bodies such as CCC. So we're going to see lots more of this going forward. And obviously, we've seen in the past 2 years a huge explosion in the adoption of AI in the workplace. Now, CCC's had a blanket annual license for businesses for well over 30 years. So have other collecting societies, CLA here in the UK, for example. And many of the publishers in the room, perhaps all of you, participate voluntarily and non-exclusively in those collective licensing solutions. And they, as you know, have always been complementary to the licensing activities that you do directly as publishers. So what we've essentially done here is take a decades-old licensing solution and modified it to include internal use only AI rights. We launched that about 15 months ago. It was July 2024 when we put it into the marketplace. And I'm delighted to say hundreds and hundreds of publishers of all kinds have voluntarily opted in their rights into that solution, as I say, on a voluntary basis. If you're not involved, we'd love to see you opt in and to work with us. So please come and talk to us if you're interested in doing that. The key elements I just want to emphasize very briefly. This is an internal use only license. There is no external sharing permitted. There's no external outputs permitted. It's a rights only license. There is no content supply from CCC to the licensee. That's the publisher's job. This is an old-fashioned collective licensing rights-only solution, but modified to include very, very detailed and specific internal use rights for AI. I've put a few sample use cases. Again, this is across corporate entities and in all sorts of industries, and you can see on the screen some of the use cases that the license permits, whether it's identifying content for regulatory submissions if you're a pharma company, or summarizing findings across a collection of scientific literature. This is just a smattering of the permitted use cases which an individual publisher would sign into when they come in to participate in the license. Again, happy to talk about some more of these going forward. The second solution, which we've just introduced into the marketplace at CCC. This is a brand new AI license. This is aimed at particularly at AI companies themselves. The first license, the one introduced 14 months ago, is for our traditional corporate licensees, whether in whatever sector they may be working on. This is aimed at AI companies, particularly. We call it the AI Systems Training License for external uses. If you've already enrolled into the first license, the one we launched 14, 15 months ago, you have to enroll separately in this one. There's no automatic connection between the two. Again, just to emphasize, this is a rights-only license. There's no content access here at all. And the goal here is to get AI systems providers who are developing various AI applications of their own, whether it's for internal or external uses, to use copyrighted content responsibly. Again, what's covered, what's not covered, the key here is there should be lawfully acquired works as inputs for training, and the trained AI system must produce a select set of outputs subject to certain contractual limitations. And you can read the rest of this slide yourself, but again, I emphasize a publisher opts in voluntarily and non-exclusively to this license, just as it did to the previous one I was describing. And as I keep saying, rights only, no content supply, which is your responsibility as publishers as far as we're concerned. That's all I wanted to say, a real gallop along two complex AI collective licensing solutions. Again, if you'd like to chat about any of it, please come and see me in the coffee break. Oh, and by the way, I think on the main ALPS program at 4 o'clock, there is a session on content licensing in the AI age, which Will at PLS and Leslie at Springer Nature are leading. Really encourage you to join that as well. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, so my name is Simon Lineker. I am the Chief Commercial Officer at Cabbles. Firstly, you may not have heard of Cabbles. We're a small US-based company, and we've actually been around for nearly 50 years. And we're very much focused on the decision-making process that researchers have when they choose which journal to publish in. So to help with that, we've got two databases that we maintain. One is called Journalytics, which is a curated database of what we call the good journals, and the other is Predatory Reports, which is a database full of the bad journals, the predatory journals that many of you will have heard of. What I'm talking to you today about is a bit like what we saw from Elsevier before. It's an overlay on the Journalytics database. So we've got Journalytics Academic as well as Journalytics Medicine. In total, there's over 20,000 verified journals in those databases. What we've done is that we're using AI to kind of build on the data there and to make that decision-making process for researchers a lot easier. So we wanted to keep the best bits, if you like, of what we provide in terms of the trusted and verified information we have about the journals, the information we got, the bibliographic information about the coverage of the journals, and the various metrics that we have. So we've got our own proprietary metrics, which looks at the information that you as publishers provide to us on things like the waiting times for times to publication, times to review, etc. We have citation metrics, where we analyze the influence that a journal may have within its own discipline and subdiscipline. We've also got pilot program, where we've got a rating on how journals engage with the SDGs, as well as information from Altmetric and Cite. So what we've done is that we've overlaid the AI over that information. So the researcher simply copies and pastes their abstract onto Compass AI. We then perform 2 levels of analysis to make sure that we understand the information that's been provided and provide that kind of quality check that we're choosing the right journal for them, and then we give them the results. Now, the benefits that we see from this is that the results are then parsed into different areas. So, for example, whether there is an APC or if it's a low APC, if it's open access, if it's got a fast turnaround, if it's a high impact journal, highly cited journal, etc. Different researchers will have different priorities. So what we try to do is to give them the information and hopefully give them the best fit. This is not the correct fit. This is simply the best fit using all the information that we have available. Now, for publishers, what we hope is that this may reduce some of the burden, because the better the decision-making process that researchers have, hopefully the more accurate and the less waste there's going to be in terms of the time and effort that all the researchers go through and the publishers go through in choosing which journal will publish which article. And obviously it freely advertises the fact when the publication happens that this is the article that's appearing in your journal. So hopefully it's going to smooth out and make the whole process more efficient. Time's up. Thank you very much for your attention. And a quick plug. If you want to go to, there's balloons at the ALPSP stand. The reason why there's balloons is because they're launching their on-demand courses. They're amazing, and I'm not just saying that because I did 2 of them. They are genuinely really good. And so if you are interested in you or your colleagues having that option to have the on-demand courses, then please go and check them out. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much to the speakers for taking up that quickfire challenge. We now have a really quick break to switch rooms if needed, so I just need to let you know that the next session in this room is Portfolio Development in the Age of Volume-Based Business Models. So if you could just join me again in thanking all of our speakers for taking up that challenge.